and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And it's the silence of the alpacas, Mike.
And last but not least, it's Colton.
And we are here not with a very special guest anymore, because we're making a little announcement, or a big announcement. I don't know how much of a surprise it is by now if you've been listening for like the last half of 2022. But we got Gill, and Gill becoming a full-time podcast member of It Slays.
Yay! Applause!
Hi.
We were tired of the sausage party, so
No longer foreign correspondent.
I mean, I do bring sausage to the party.
It's very spicy.
It's very spicy. So yeah, that's the big news so far for 2023. We're just coming out the gates, trying to shake things up. And why not have Gill just question all of our thoughts and decisions, and hopefully bring some more picks that Colton will hate into the fold.
Welcome to the gaslighting
that's what I've been
party.
looking forward to. Yeah, no longer
So far,
just Mike
so good.
picks. Now
Yeah.
you're looking for Jill picks.
So well, let's get started with what media we have been consuming. What have you been watching? What have you been listening to? What have you been reading? All that good stuff. New year, new me. Mike, what have you been doing?
New Year, same old fucking me. So, really, I haven't been watching much because as somebody who works with the public over Christmas time, you have no time to do anything, and when you do, it's literally like you don't have the energy or willpower to live or do it. So, I have managed to get a few episodes of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and shut up. And I rewatched one of my favorite movies a couple days ago. It was one of Parker Posey's first movies, actually. It was Party Girl, and an old dear friend of mine had never seen it before, and this was like shocking and criminal, so he came over and we had a few drinks and watched it, and it was really fun. So that's really all I've been consuming. I keep it short and sweet. Jill, as the new official member, what have you been consuming?
All right, so I'm kind of on vacation right now, so I actually picked up The Handmaid's Tale again. I had like 2 seasons left to it, so I finished it yesterday. That was pretty good. I watched X for the first time the other day. That was pretty good. And I'm still reading the same book series, but I'm on the 3rd book, so I'm reading A Court of Wings and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So the fairy porn. That's it for me, though. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, since it's the end of the year, I've been trying to catch up on a bunch of shit that I've been meaning to watch for the whole year, so I can do my top 10 movies of the year and hopefully not release it in like February like I had to last year. So what have I seen? I went out to the theater to see Babylon, which is Damien Chazelle's new movie.
Was that the Margot Robbie one?
It is, yep. And
Nice.
the Brad Pitt one and Diego Calva one, and then numerous other cameos one. I'm still trying to figure out what I completely think of it. I definitely do like it, but it's basically like 3 hours of complete chaos, or maybe controlled chaos. Like, once again, I'm not 100% sure. There's this old adage on film sets that, from working on it this year, I've heard numerous people say, "Welcome to the circus." And that's very much what this movie is. It's just kind of showing like how chaotic filmmaking is, and especially like back in the roaring 20s where filmmaking was full of orgies and cocaine and more than it is now. So it was pretty entertaining to watch. I think it kind of loses itself at some points in time just because, once again, it's 3 hours long and it's just completely chaotic. But if you like Damien Chazelle movies, I still think there's a lot there for you. Like, he still has his sweeping camera work and his whiplash shots and, you know, his tried and true themes of loving movies and, more importantly, loving jazz. That's all in it. And, yeah, this one I think is probably his most ambitious yet. I've heard a lot of people kind of describe it as like a sort of fevered dream version of La La Land. So
is he the person who did La La Land?
He is, yeah.
Oh, okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah. So it's weird. Like, the movie even takes bits of music from La La Land and kind of like pitch tunes them or slows them down and whatnot. Like, it's very disorienting as someone who's very much a fan and knows those movies inside and out. So yeah, I kind of need to rewatch it. I was very caught off guard within the first 5 minutes of the movie. There's a scene with elephant diarrhea squirting all over like the main characters that I was like, what the fuck did I sign up for? So yeah, if you go in expecting elephant diarrhea, you'll get that and a whole lot more. Once again, I thought it was pretty great overall. It's just, you know, it's no Whiplash or La La Land, that's for sure. In addition to Babylon, I saw Marcel the Shell with shoes on. I don't know if any of you know the old YouTube videos. Marcel
I do,
the Shell.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you've seen those, there's not really much more to add here. It's just obviously very cute and in the same vein. This one's kind of framed like a mockumentary of a filmmaker kind of, you know, following Marcel the Shell as if he's a, you know, a living creature as he's trying to find his family, and they're kind of mixing in 60 minutes and a bunch of archival footage to kind of build a larger than life, you know, story for Marcel. It was cute. It's nothing revelatory, but, you know, I enjoyed it for the most part. Like, you know, it was an easy 90-minute watch. In addition to that, I saw Blonde, which, God, that's awful. I have basically nothing good to say about it. It's like almost 3 hours long, and I think Ana de Armas is like in some form of undress for at least half the movie, and it was still the most boring thing I think I've watched all year. Yeah, I don't know much about Marilyn Monroe, but I have to assume whatever they showed here is not accurate. And yeah, no, definitely not a fan of that one.
Well, it's Rowan, based on a novel, right?
Yes,
like, it was based on
a
piece of fiction anyway. Like, I read that book years and years and years ago when I was in my Joyce Carol Oates phase, and I remember kind of enjoying it, but I remember I was like, they're really doing a movie of this? And then everybody was like, saying all this shit about it, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, once again, like, I'm not someone who's familiar with Marilyn's life at all. I just know that novel is very much like discussed and kind of hated to a degree. So seeing a movie kind of come out, I'm not exactly shocked that people didn't like it, but I am surprised with how just boring and kind of just straight up bad it was. Yeah. On a similar note, I also watched White Noise, which is Noah Baumbach's new movie. Yeah, Marriage Story
Another book that I read many years ago, by the way.
Okay. I feel like this probably works better as a book and not in the COVID era, because it's about like an airborne, you know, infection or, you know, contamination that keeps everyone inside and people have to wear masks and all this shit. I'm just like, Noah Baumbach, why did you feel the need to make this like nowadays? right now. Yeah, it's like, if you would have made it 10 years ago, it would have been pretty good. If you made it, I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, hopefully we'll be far enough from COVID-19 from by then that it'll maybe be, you know, good. But yeah, it wasn't for me. I just found it really, once again, just kind of boring. A lot of the black comedy didn't really work for me. I thought a lot of the writing was very stilted or like awkward. It very much felt like a novel that was put on the screen, but like an overwritten novel put on the screen. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know, it was not my thing at all. Yeah, I mean, I still have a bunch of other shit there to mention. Like I watched a documentary on a volcanologist that fell in love called Fire of Love. It's on Disney Plus. It was great. It's a really good documentary. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be in the Oscar race, so that's why I watched it. I rewatched The Whale, which is probably my favorite movie of the year. It didn't really hold up as well on my second watch, so that's why I'm saying probably my favorite movie of the year. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this one. I'm still someone who pretty much loves the movie, but yeah, I'm going to say I saw like some issues with the movie on a second watch. Not on the controversy side, but on like, oh, was that the best way to write this, or was this piece of acting a little bit over the top, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, once again, I've probably saw a lot more, but I'll throw it over to Rowan because he's probably going to ramble on for another 10 minutes as well. So.
The shade.
Where's the lie, though? Where's the lie?
So I'll try to keep it somewhat short because I figured I'd only hit the highlights.
Rowan was bragging about before we went live that he watched 7 movies yesterday alone. So strap in.
So let's say instead of the highlights, he's doing the lowlights. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so like Colton, I was just kind of finishing up. I didn't get to every movie I wanted to watch that came out this year, but just trying to hit some of the ones that I had kind of earmarked as ones I was super excited or interested for. So I guess some of the highlights of that was I finally saw the Banshees of Inisherin, and really enjoyed that. That's totally not what the name of it is. I don't know how to say that name.
Inisherin.
You don't know how to pronounce any word, Rowan.
I mean, they only say that the name of the island 50 times in the movie, so
Okay, fair.
I'm not Irish, guys. Whatever. But yeah, I really like this, and I went in expecting not to. I didn't see his second movie. I saw 3 billboards. What's his other one? The in Bruges.
7 Psychopaths and In Bruges.
So I've seen 7 Psychopaths. I didn't know that was his. Obviously, 3 billboards, the big one, and I thought that was a giant piece of shit. I saw it when it first came out. I don't have time for white people just writing terrible commentary on racism.
Crash 2004.
Yeah, that's what that movie felt
I'll
like.
never get over that. Best picture winner, whatever.
Obviously, I was a little apprehensive going into this. I was gonna say, I think it is a Crash 2004 situation. All the articles about 3 billboards now, I think pretty much recognize that it's super problematic, and he just had shitty opinions on race in America. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was weird. I feel like you could almost say it kind of has this weird dark horror adjacent feel, because it's just this creepy dark comedy that goes into madness as it keeps going, and I really enjoyed it. Colin Farrell just killing 2022.
Yes.
Did he show Dong in it?
No Dong. No Colin Farrell Dong.
Just curious.
He shows donkey.
Yeah.
Lots of donkey.
There is lots of the donkey's adorable in it.
Yeah.
Donkey is the highlight. Probably one of the best things I watched this month was Tar. I really, really like Tar. I'm going to have to watch it a second time. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I need to kind of think and re-examine with it, but I thought it was super interesting. Its take and its thoughts on people in power and cancel culture and what that means, and it was just super interesting, and the performances were amazing, and I just that was one I went into that I was I'm gonna hate this movie, and I just really, really enjoyed it. That's kind of the theme of December, is I watched a lot of movies I thought I wasn't gonna like, and then ended up really liking.
But how could you think you were gonna hate something with Cate Blanchett in it?
I mean, I'm not a huge Cate Blanchett person, so
we're divorced.
I'm sorry.
We're divorced. Goodbye.
It's also packaged as a very pretentious movie, and it also is kind of pretentious. So I mean, I completely understand why someone wouldn't like Tar very much, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I guess on a couple horror side of things, I saw Violent Night. I did like that quite a bit, more than I thought I did. It took me a while to think if I liked it or not. It's just an action horror-ish adjacent. It's funny. I like David Harbour.
I like picturing you just contemplating Violent Night, just very much, the rich mythology of Violent Night, just...
Yeah, it was all right. I watched Glorious, which is a Shudder exclusive, a kind of, a Lovecraftian type movie. I can't think of the guy's name, but it's, the guy plays Jason from True Blood, and it was pretty good. About some mythical being god that lives in a glory hole in a rest stop bathroom.
Not a glory hole.
Yeah.
How are you not naming that the voice of like the eldritch being is J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, well, I was
Like,
getting to it.
Creature that lives in the glory hole. Yeah,
I was getting to it. Yeah, and he's
okay.
He's fantastic. I thought it was pretty good. Like, this is the theme, it seems, this whole year is like Shudder, I think, is just really starting to nail a lot of the exclusives. Like, even if they're not 4 or 5 stars, like, I find not many of them are just like complete utter pieces of shit. Like, they're usually pretty watchable now. I did the one thing I wanted to bring up that was a giant piece of shit I watched, and I was like, I need to warn people. So I did get to see Emancipation, which is Will Smith's new film with 30 Days of Night alumni, what's his name there? Ben Foster. Yeah, this was not good, like, whatsoever. It might be one of the worst films I watched this year. I thought Ben Foster was really good in it. And it's not even that Will Smith was bad in it. It was just like weird directing choices. It's all done in grays. There's like no color. It's this weird muted color, but it doesn't add anything to the storytelling. It doesn't really look good. Like, it's just a lot of bad choices, and other than the 2 leads, it's a lot of overacting for like no reason. And it's really not like, it definitely feels like Oscar baity, but there's like nothing prolific in it. It's really just a like hunter, it's about a slave catcher chasing a slave, but it's done like in kind of this like Revenant or like action movie style. So like nothing feels really at stake in it other than it's just like, oh, this guy's just chasing this other guy through the swamps.
You mentioned the color palette. Was it black and white or grayscale, or was it just really muted colors? I'm just curious.
No, it's like grayscale, and it was weird because there was like little things that, like, I find a lot of directors that use this, they're like, oh, I'll let this little color pop through, but it was
they
like
never Schindler's Listed it, did they? Like,
God!
But they did it like it didn't look like it was on purpose. It was like things that were insignificant that just like didn't make it through the filter or something, and it just it wasn't great. I feel like all the discourse I've seen on it, no one really thought it was great. So sadly, I don't think Will Smith is back. I got to bring up for Colton. I finally saw After Yang, and yeah, fuck. Just cried.
I saw that you wrote that you were teary-eyed or you needed tissues by the end of it. I'm like, yeah, man, that's a good one.
It was good. A24, just killing it, and Colin Farrell just killing it.
Yeah, that was my favorite movie of last year. Just because I happened to see it before the end of the year, so technically it was a 2021 movie. But yeah, I absolutely love that movie. That's excellent.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then I'll only mention a couple others. I saw Moonage Daydream while I did a massive edible. I really enjoyed it. Other than, yeah, it was a trip. It was a trip.
As someone who's not a Bowie fan, like, could I watch that and get anything out of it, or is it just kind of like I shouldn't bother?
Yeah, I think so. So I watched it with Exilia, and Exilia is not a Bowie fan. Like, she's just like, I don't care about Bowie. And after we watched it, like, Exilia's been...
Do I have to divorce her too? Like...
No, but after we watched it, Exilia's been listening to Bowie for like 2 days now.
Okay.
So it's really well done. If you saw, I can't think of the full name of it, but the director did like the Kurt Cobain documentary that came out a couple years ago that came out in theater. So it's like, it's very art house, like it's some live concert footage, but it's like very trippy, effects, and like it's very shaped. It's shaped oddly. It just goes through his career, and how you can definitely tell how the director feels about each stage of his career. Specifically, the director didn't really like Bowie's kind of 80s acting phase. You could tell that he was not a fan. I know. So yeah, that was good. I saw Adult Swim Yule Log, which I already finished my top 10 horror list of the year, and it did make it on that. I really liked it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. You've seen Too Many Cooks, right? Just making
Yeah,
sure.
I did see
okay.
Too Many Cooks. I love Too Many Cooks.
We're not even going to go
by
there.
the same director. So just making sure.
And yeah, Yulog's wild.
Unedited footage of a bear. Hello. Like, literally my favorite piece of horror film of all time. Yeah. I for anybody, I don't even know if I mentioned it on air, but like, ever since Colton came on, I've been saying we need to do those two shorts as an episode. Like, I'm obsessed because I think they're the most terrifying pieces of film ever.
When we were looking into that, wasn't there a revelation that you guys already discussed
we already did
it on the show?
We already did it. Every time he brings this up.
Every time
he brings this up.
Things about my own life that surprise me.
I mean, we can get my take and Jill's take on it. We can just do it again.
That's true.
You know?
We'll just do it like once every year and a half or so. We'll just do a discussion of those.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's wild. Like, it just takes you on so many twists and turns, like Adult Swim only can. I'm only going to mention two more. I saw All Quiet on the Western Front. Really like that. That's probably
classic.
That's up there for like my top movies of the year. It was great. Everything about it was great. And I'll end it on one that's controversial for me and Colton's relationship.
Oh,
definitely made my top 10 horror list. Hi
Garbage.
Colton. Hi. I finally saw Bones and all and fucking loved it. Man, it's so good. That's all I'm going to say. The music's awesome. Just the whole feel of it. It's a horror, but not really. It's a road trip movie about cannibals.
What do you think of Mark Rylance's performance?
I thought it was all right.
Okay.
I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting take. I thought as a whole it worked. I think for what they were going for, I was on board. Everyone go see that movie. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, that's all I've been watching. I won't talk about any of the rest of it.
Thank God.
Oh, thank God. So we didn't announce who picked this pick for this episode because we had made the announcement that she was full-time, and we don't just give non-full-time members picks. So, Gill, do you want to introduce what your pick was?
All right, my pick is the cosmic horror based on H.P. Lovecraft short story, The Color Out of Space, with Nic Cage.
Perfect. Well, we'll get into the trailer, and then we'll be back with the bio and first experiences.
Look at this.
All those years in the big city, we finally got out. We're living the dream.
Maybe it is a dream.
Then everything just blew up. Big flash, like a pink light. Or actually, I don't even know what color it was. It wasn't like any color I'd ever seen before.
Looks like a meteorite. You think it's radioactive? I mean, it's from space, right? Meteorites are generally no more dangerous than ordinary rocks.
How can something that big just disappear? Did you plant those?
No.
Ward, you come here for a sec.
Oh, God.
What are you doing? Shh. It's talking to me. Who's talking to you? A man in the well.
It's in the static, it's in the moisture. It's in here, is out there. And what's out there is in here now.
Everything's under control.
Why are you so in denial? That thing from the meteorite changes everything around it.
It's just the color. But it burns.
Do you believe me now?
I don't know what I believe anymore. Everything's gonna be A-okay.
Color Out of Space was directed by Richard Stanley and written by Richard Stanley and Scarlett Amaris, and the story is as follows. The Gardner family's lives are turned upside down when a colorful meteorite crashes onto their farmland, drawing the eyes of local law enforcement, government agencies, and a charismatic hydrologist by the name of Ward. But when said meteorite vanishes, leaving behind just the very color it created, the Gardner family and their land become host to all sort of paranormal phenomena, mysterious growths, alien life forms, temporal distortion, audio-visual hallucinations, and explosive episodes that tear the very fabric of their universe apart. Once the dust has settled and the locals have long since put the incident behind them, Ward remains haunted by the Gardner family's disappearance and the ever-confounding Color Out of Space.
So, our first experiences, is this our first time watching it, or are we just H.P. Lovecraft stans and we own like posters and books and 8 copies of this Blu-ray? Jill, this was your pick, so we'll start with you. Is this your first time seeing this film?
This is my third watch, actually.
Ooh.
Many times. I first saw it in 2020, I think, when I was getting my tattoo sleeve done. I used to do 8-hour sessions. Every time I went into that shop, we'd just like put on horror movies all day. And one day this one played and it really stuck with me.
Amazing.
So yeah, I thought it would be a good first pick. What about you, Rowan?
So yeah, this is my first time seeing it. I was aware of it when it came out. It didn't play in any theater that I was around or anything, and we were coming off Mandy, so I was pumped. I was like, Spectravision, Nicolas Cage, I'm down. So I immediately, the day the Blu-ray came out, I went and bought the Blu-ray, popped it in. I watched I think 40 seconds of it, and then something came up and we had to go, and I had never turned it back on. So this was my first time seeing it. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, so I was at the world premiere of this. Back in 2019, it was a Midnight Madness premiere with the director and the whole cast in attendance. And looking back at my list, I watched this right after The Lighthouse for the first time.
Oh.
So this was my 4th or 5th movie of the day. It started at midnight, as Midnight Madness movies do at TIFF. And yeah, so I watched it with obviously a pretty captive audience. Everyone was electric. Nic Cage was in the room with me watching it. So yeah, that was my first time seeing it. And this is, I think, only the second time I've seen it. What about you, Mike?
Well, I had never heard of it before. Literally, when Jill suggested it, I was like, I have to Google this because I know nothing about it. I had no idea who was in it. I had no idea it was like a Lovecraft adaptation, nothing. So yeah, when I watched it for the recording, it was my first time seeing it, and I went in kind of totally blind, except for when I looked it up, everyone was like, oh, similar to, and it was like Mandy and blah, 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 and I was like, okay, this is good, because I do routinely recommend people watch Mandy for a mind-altering experience. So yeah, this is my first time. Thank you, Jill. I can only imagine getting a tattoo while watching this and just
it was pretty good.
So we know where we're gonna start. We're gonna start with our favorite scene and or favorite kill. I guess I'll reverse it a bit. Mike, what was your favorite scene and or favorite kill?
I think that my favorite scene was, it's hard to say, because kind of once it starts kicking in, after the little bit of slow burn at the beginning, it's just sort of not a climb, it's more of a just straight line up into insanity. But it was when it was sort of really kind of starting to spin out of control, and it was when oh my god, listen, my brain, it's New Year's Day when we're recording this, by the way, so I have mush. I got very drunk last night. But when the daughter is in her bedroom, with her little mass market paperback of Necronomicon from Avon Books, which I thought was a cute little touch, a reference to, the Lovecraft. And, doing the, I thought she was just, gonna cut a little bit of, her arm and, get blood and, me. And then she started, actually carving the, signs into her. And I was just blah! I actually started, spinning out then, because I was like, this is one of the last seemingly sane people in this movie, and to me, I just thought it was such a cool moment where I was like, okay, this is fucked. That was when I knew I was like, this is fucked. This is not gonna be one of those movies where it gets contained. This is one of those movies where everybody is going to end up dead or insane or both.
I don't know what you're talking about. I thought Nicolas Cage stayed sane the whole thing. So.
Oh, he was totally sane. He was like, you know, the picture of sanity, like picture, you know, all work and no play Jack Nicholson, just from the get-go. Yeah. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, this was a hard one for me because I actually prefer the beginning of the movie when it is more slow burn than when it starts getting crazy. So I think kind of the perfect kind of melding of that for me where it still feels a little bit grounded is I think the dinner's ready scene to me because it's just so well done with, like, obviously the cutting between the carrots and her fingers and whatnot and the fact that it's actually happening and is not in her head. And I just, it kind of hit the perfect note of being a little bit cheesy but still horrific, where I think kind of the more this movie goes on, it kind of leans a little bit too much into the visual effects, which obviously look very cheap for its budget. I'm talking about not the practical effects, but the CGI, you know, just a little bit much. And it kind of has an over-reliance on style later on, which obviously if you like neon, bright lights, and oversaturated everything, you're going to love it. If it's a little bit kind of done to death, you're going to feel a little bit more like, whatever. So at this point in the movie, I think it was kind of striking a careful balance of a little bit of style. The score was kind of doing the heavy lifting rather than the visual side. And I found it a little bit of like, just I guess like a frightening image, or it was like cut together well, like it was coherent, where the movie, once again, as it's spiraling into madness, gets more and more incoherent as it goes on. So yeah, I think kind of the dinner's ready scene for me. What about you, Jill? It was your pick, you know? You seem to like it. So what was your favorite scene or favorite kill?
Well, I think my favorite parts of the movie or anything where Nicolas Cage is like, you know, starting to act crazy, starting to act like his father, which is like his biggest fear. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, he really is acting like Donald Trump. Like, he sounds like him. He's acting. Yeah. I was like, that has to be intentional, you know, because they seem to be like a pretty liberal family. And perhaps he came from, you know, a really like Republican family. And maybe that's, he's kind of internalizing something there. But I really like those parts. My other favorite scene is at the very end where everything is totally unhinged and there's like this ascension to this other planet or this other world. I thought that scene was visually really stunning. What about you, Rowan?
My favorite scene, I'm kind of just jumping off of Colton. It was the finger scene. I thought that was pretty well done. Definitely, you know, I thought everything you said, the way it was shot, just kind of the vibe that was going on then. It was definitely creepy. I was like, oh yeah, this is like pretty effective. It also, I guess, kind of threw me off to the latter part because I was like, oh, is it kind of going to be like, you know, creepy, just things like this where it's going to be like weird and you know, I really knew nothing. Like, I've never read any H.P. Lovecraft or anything like that. So like, I didn't know like if this movie was going to go full insane. I didn't know anything about it really. So yeah, I really like that part. I'm sure we'll get into it. Like I definitely do. Unlike you, Colton, I actually preferred the second half to the first half.
Yeah.
I kind of found, I think it really hit its stride in kind of like the last 30 minutes for me, where I was like, all right, if the movie was kind of more like this, I probably would have been okay with it. But yeah, that was my favorite scene, and I'm not really a kill. I didn't really have a favorite kill in this, but
so I guess Jill mentioned Nic Cage. How do you guys feel about Nic Cage? Are you guys Nic Cage fans? Does he drive you crazy? I'm just curious because myself personally, like, I don't really get the hype on Nic Cage. Like, I find most of the time he's overacting and he just kind of drives me crazy. And in this movie, I think it would have been better if you actually had a better actor that doesn't just read as crazy right from the get-go, right? It's kind of the Jack Nicholson, The Shining scenario where it's like, he's crazy right from the beginning. It's the same with Nic Cage just because he does turn in good performances, but I think he really needs to be guided and shepherded towards that performance, where this is just kind of like classic Nic Cage freak out, you know, where he's throwing tomatoes in the garbage can, or, you know, when he's shooting the llamas and all this shit, right? It's just, yeah, what are your thoughts on Nic Cage?
I personally am one of those people who find him mostly annoying, which might not be surprising because I find a not insignificant chunk of male actors to be blah and annoying. Especially people that people seem to love, like Will Ferrell and shit like that. But however,
that's your go-to.
Everybody
loves Will Ferrell.
Hate Will Ferrell. Like, I'm just like thinking like over the years, like there was like 10 years when he was like inescapable in every like comedy movie, and I was just like done with it.
Okay, that's true. Yeah,
but you know what I mean. And Nic Cage was the same thing. You know, he had a good like 20-year run. I feel like where in mainstream movies he was like in everything. But I think he really does, like, sometimes when he appears kind of like randomly in a movie, that he does turn in like an insane performance, and it's magnetic. Like, because we were talking about before, like, obviously compared this to Mandy, like, I think he's phenomenal in Mandy because it's so over the top. And, you know, like, one of my other favorites was like when we went to see Kick-Ass in theaters and he was in that, and I was like, oh my god, like, he's so good. Like, I barely even recognize him. So there are times when I think he is like so good, but most of the time I just find him very annoying. But I respect him because he like has that mainstream cash, but still does a lot of like indie stuff, which is really cool. Like, he doesn't have to. He, I'm sure, has lots of money and can star in whatever he wants to star in, even at this point in his career. So, but I still find him super annoying.
The IRS might argue with that, but
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think the dude's kind of broke, actually, which is why he's in all these movies.
I don't know anything about him. I hate male actors. Like, I actively avoid their personal lives. Like, I can tell you everything that's happening with every actress alive right now. But Nic Cage, I just find him annoying. I feel like he still has some kind of like reputation.
Yeah, has anyone else here seen Pig? That he was in?
No, that truffle hunting movie or whatever?
The truffle hunting one.
That sounds really interesting.
He actually was pretty good in that movie. There is obviously like a freak out scene, but it's not like, I thought it was going to be like John Wick with a truffle pig. You know, someone kills his truffle pig and he goes and murders, 50 people or something. Yeah. But it wasn't. It was just a very like understated, artful movie about loss of this truffle pig. He was pretty good in that. Yeah, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
the title of that sounds like something I would hate. Yeah,
it's literally Nic Cage playing himself as like this famous actor and all this stuff. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why I'm not a bigger fan of the guy. Maybe it's just because he operates in that area where it's like that campy area where I don't know if he's good or trying to be bad. That I always have issues with that. Anyways, Gill and Rowan. Any thoughts on Nic Cage?
Yeah, I like Nic Cage, especially for the reason you just mentioned, actually. He's in that area of campy where you don't know if you're supposed to take it seriously, if he's trying too hard, or if he's nailing it. It's like really, I don't know, it's unsettling, which I think kind of works here, especially in the beginning of the movie. Like, this family is still kind of weird, right? They just moved to this rural setting. They're isolated, and they continue to get more weird and completely unhinged, and I think it just really goes well with that. Also, I wrote a note that says, why does Nicolas Cage look like Marilyn Manson without makeup? And that's the only thing I could think of the entire movie.
Oh my god.
Anyways, what about you, Rowan?
It's kind of funny that that's the first thing we talked about, because the first thing in my notes is a question that says, Nicolas Cage, is he phoning it in? Because I just felt like, with Mandy, I think Mandy's kind of always the movie that everyone goes to for Nicolas Cage freak out. Nicolas Cage performance in these horror movies. He's kind of had like this run of that genre movie. And, I was thinking this came right off of Mandy. I know I was watching like the featurette on this, and Cage talks about like he was in his trailer for Mandy. Basically like Elijah Wood and them came in, brought like a fake contract. It was like, we just want you to sign a piece of paper that says you will do this movie. And, he agreed. He was like, yeah, sure. Like, he liked Mandy so much. He was like, I like working with you guys. I'll do it. And I just felt like the freakouts were like disingenuous in this one. I felt like it was almost like he just didn't take it. He needed to take it up another level, where these were just kind of like, oh, I'm going to freak out because that's what everyone loves, is me freaking out. And he definitely, I saw like some stuff about Richard Stanley like kind of coaching him, and I know Richard Stanley said that he wanted him to base this performance off of Vampire Kiss, which was like his favorite.
Oh my god, yeah.
Nicolas Cage one. So I just felt like he was all right. I mean, I just feel like you can do better. better Nicolas Cage movies than or performances than this one. So
it's interesting because obviously he has a few freak out scenes, but there's also moments where he is supposed to be more subtle or like more slow burn, like mental unraveling, and those are the shit like I just don't get from him. Like obviously I understand that he's Oscar nominated and he's had good performances, but outside of Pig, I mean, there hasn't been too many of them within the last 10 years, right? A lot of them are very over the top, shouting and freaking out, performances. Yeah, I just feel like if it was a different character that I didn't already expect him to be screaming at the top of his lungs and slamming things, it might have worked a little bit better for me.
I will say, which I normally don't like, I actually liked all the like kid actors in this, like the little boy and the brother and the sister. I thought they were all pretty fantastic. As much as like they really played up the older brother being the stoner, and it was like how many stereotypical stoner things can we put in this? Like I thought he did a pretty good job. I will say I was kind of confused at the like early in the movie when we have the scene where he's having like the seizure or whatever. Like he's just like drooling and stuff in front of the computer screen. And I didn't really get it because I was like, I know the movie's kind of like trying to tell you that pretty much like as soon as this thing lands, like they're drinking the water and so they're already being infected. But I just thought it was pretty early that I was like, for most of it, I was like, I thought it was just a seizure. I was like, does this guy have seizures? Is this going to be important later on? And just like nothing really ever comes of it. It's like he snaps out of it and then everything is okay. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of weird. And I was gonna say too, like I thought with what was her name, like Lativia or whatever in it,
Lavinia.
Yes,
yeah.
that was her name.
Lativia.
Yes, my brain mushed. Lativia.
Sounds like a yogurt. Actually.
Jamie Lee Curtis presents Lativia Light.
Lavinia, which I had to read because, like I said, I know nothing about H.P. Lovecraft, but I guess is like the name of a town or something in another book. Like most of the names have something to do with other Lovecraft stories. But I really liked it. I thought she kind of gave me like the Craft vibes, like something 90s. Like just, I thought there was something kind of endearing about her. There was like kind of, teenage drama film from the 90s that I really enjoyed. I don't know what
I called her a mass market witch. It's like...
Yeah.
She was clearly very invested in, like, rituals, but, like, also it was like, oh, I'm going to, the big chain bookstore in town and, like, getting all my witchcraft supplies there. And desperately just trying, which was not I just thought it was funny. It was not, like, a drag, but, like, I thought Mass Market Witch was kind of like, oh, that's kind of like her character right there, which I thought it was kind of funny.
I was curious what you guys thought about the Tommy Chong casting. I was interested to see Tommy Chong in this because I did not know he was in this movie.
Dude, I love him. It was so good.
I didn't hate him in it. I mean, not that I ever hate Tommy Chong. I mean, he's very endearing as a person. But I thought he was pretty good, and I highly suggest if anyone has access or buys like the Blu-ray or the 4K to this, they talk about in the featurette that he's actually based off a real life guy. It was Richard Stanley's best friend, and I'm talking about like they look exactly like the same person, except this guy never wore a shirt, but he was like long-haired, like white guy that like thought he was like a shaman, but he was really just a huge pothead. And I guess he had died like a year before making this, so it was like a dedication to his friend, this character. But
that's nice.
I thought Tommy Chong was pretty cool in it. I thought he set up kind of that good, kind of like prophet character that we see in a lot of these like horror movies. And
yeah, I loved
it's
his
like he's
part.
like the fool,
Yeah, he's the only one that like knows it's aliens, and I love that part where he says like they came on the rock. It's in the static. It's in the moisture. What's fast is slow. What's out there is in here. What's out there is in or whatever. And it came from the stars. It's just a color, but it burns. And then when they play like what he's saying on the tapes, it sounded so good. It was so unsettling. That was one of my favorite parts. I really loved
that was
his
a very
performance.
creepy part.
Yeah.
That was probably like my second favorite scene in it. I really like that. I wish they had showed more because I had like so many theories on what was going on, because at first I was like, oh, are they just like, this is stuff he's recorded before? But then I kind of thought about it. I was like, well, all these, you know, these characters have all been like transformed by the lightning and the rocks and stuff. And then I was like, you know, even though I saw no like proof of it, I was like, I wonder if like he's like been melted into these recording machines and that's his actual voice right now, and he's like blended in with these electronics.
That's big brain.
Yeah, they should have hired me to come up with this scene. But yeah,
For
like
real.
I thought that was like peak time of this movie, where it was just like the vibe I liked, the look I liked. I thought it looked cool, it sounded cool, it was creepy. If it had been like all of that kind of stuff, and also that creepy side of like the cutting off the fingers, I would have been a happy boy.
No, but I do think that he does function as that like Shakespearean character, you know, which obviously you do see in a lot of horror movies like throughout the ages, especially like in slasher movies, you know, like Crazy Ralph and Friday the 13th and stuff. Like it's literally like this prophetic like fool character who
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in The Stand.
The Stand. Fuck you. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Airplane 1. Anyway, yeah, but you know, like they see what's going on and they are like kind of the voice of reason that nobody listens to until it's too late, which I find funny that, you know, then they have him on the like tape. Because it's like, it's already too late. He has transformed. Also, can we please talk about transformation and the fucking... There's so much to do with transformation in this, I don't know where to start. But one of my favorite little details was like the flourishing of like the plants and like flowers and stuff.
Yeah,
and
set
it made me
design.
think of another movie which is similar, which funny that it's something that Gill likes, which made me think a little bit of Annihilation. And you know, the similar like, oh, there's something kind of from outer space and it causes bizarre but beautiful plant growth. And I was like, this is a really interesting kind of like aspect of this transformation that like, you know, they're already in this like beautiful area, but it's like, oh, and they do point it out too. It's like, oh, that must be a perennial, you know, like, did you plant that? And it's like, how far and how deep does the transformation go? Because you've seen it in the electronics, you see it in the people and the animals, and like, it's clearly like in the water and like the earth itself, and like how deep and how far. And that I sort of thought about after the movie was over, because he kind of like hints at that at the very end before the credits roll, and it's like, how deep is the transformation going to go, and how long is it going to last, and is it going to come back? And I just thought that was like one of the very kind of like scary elements of this movie.
Yeah, I actually I was thinking when I was watching it, because I actually don't like know the deeper meaning of this, but I was wondering if this was some type of like colonization attempt from another planet. Like, are they trying to you know, are they trying to like come in and infect other places, and then like, I don't know if it was like a wormhole at the end where they like lift at that whole piece of land and everyone like, and then they like show this glimpse into that planet. Are they trying to like, you know, get people to go there or something? Because they make everything look like their planet, and then at the very end of the transformation, they just got like zooted to this like other planet, and I thought it was
for sure, yeah.
interesting.
But it's funny because they make reference to, you know, oh, we moved away from this, we were in the big city, and now we're back, and you know, Jolie Richardson. By the way, shout out to Jolie Richardson, who was in another one of our episodes from last year, Event Horizon. Love it, another space themed.
I was
bizarre
literally just
horror
about
movie
to bring up Event Horizon, but finish.
Yeah,
your point,
right. It's
though.
just so bizarre that like she was in Event Horizon and then this, and it's both like kind of freaky cult movies. But you know, they do mention like she says like, your father wouldn't even recognize it now. And then it's so funny because I was thinking about like colonization, but gentrification too, and like people moving and like taking over these like rural areas, and like, oh, we're bringing our Wi-Fi, like, oh, you know, where's all the amenities? We need a hospital like right here. And even though that mayor's like a total asshole, she is like, welcome to the sticks. Like, this is how it is. You can't just come here and change it. You know what I mean? But then you have the aliens coming and like, or whatever it is. I don't know how we're describing it, but this force, you know, like you said, coming and changing and transforming, and yeah.
Well, there's also just a very obvious cancer metaphor
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I also want to talk about that.
Yeah, which, you know, it's one of the first things that's revealed to us in the movie, that her mother has cancer and has to get a mastectomy and all that thing. So yeah, it could also be that kind of internal character drama being externalized through this concept in the movie of this foreign body infecting, destroying everything, you know,
of course,
impacting not just the physical, but like all aspects of life, you know. So
and like weird growths and like causing things to grow in strange ways, which, you know, you're right.
Yeah, it also like infects from the inside, and it spreads until it totally consumes the host and destroys it until it's unrecognizable. And I think also another point about cancer, like cancer with the color, there's a chance to escape it. Like at one point, they're able to leave the farm. They're able to communicate outside the farm, but when it starts to like take a really big hold on them, there's no outside communication. They can't leave, and it's impossible to defeat it, and you just have to let it overcome you. There's no other option. So I think that's also a link with cancer there.
Going back to the Event Horizon point, I mean, other than the actress, one thing I really did appreciate about this movie was we do get a glimpse of like the alien planet or like that other world, because I remember specifically when we were talking and discussing Event Horizon, obviously that was cosmic horror. Lovecraft obviously came up to a small amount in that conversation. I remember one of my big disappointments with the movie is that we don't see like the hell planet, or we don't see hell itself at the end of Event Horizon. So I like, even if it was just a quick like vision or a glimpse through Lavinia's eyes of like, you know, the place that she's gonna wind up being, or maybe that's what the world itself was supposed to be. We, you know, it's left ambiguous, but I did like seeing this movie's vision of like what this other world will be. You know, it was neat, even if it was just kind of shaky CGI showing it. I was like, I appreciate the swing, you know, like it takes balls to kind of do that and throw it out there, right? So I did appreciate seeing it. That is at least one, you know, complaint that's mitigated. I don't have to worry about that. I was glad to see it.
And I guess I'll say on a visual practical side of, like, you know, as we talk about the transformations and stuff, that cat looked terrible. When I saw that cat, I was really worried at that point. I was like, this cat looks like shit.
G-Spot the cat.
G-Spot the cat.
It's a really cool name.
Yeah, terrible joke with the cat.
Oh, jeez. That was pretty lame.
Well, and I was kind of disappointed because when the cat was in the road, like, you could really tell it was just like CGI, which was disappointing because stuff like with the emus and then the mom,
they're alpacas.
Or alpacas.
We've called them emus, llamas, everything.
Yeah, whatever they were.
Lactavia.
But like they did so much like practical stuff that I thought, like, I didn't think that looked amazing. I mean, you could see a lot of homage to The Thing and John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of feel they were going for. But, you know, I still respected. I was like, you know, this is definitely practical. Like, it looks gross and bizarre. So I was just kind of like, couldn't we have done that with the cat? Like, just, you know, when the cat's on the road, we could have just made a shitty practical cat instead of a weird CGI one. I will say, the mom, like when the mom and the son combine, I thought that was awesome. I thought, like, when they're on the couch and stuff, it looked great. That's where I was pulling some more deeper meanings into it. I'll even give a shout out. I know Willow wrote about this movie when it came out. I read that. So I had that on my mind, you know, thinking about like a mother absorbing her son and birth and all that kind of stuff. But like, I thought that was like some of the coolest stuff in the whole movie, especially when we get the full transformation into kind of the monster. I thought that looked awesome. Like, you know, when
it was terrifying.
Yeah, like a great scene, and they did the awesome. You know, they did what most new films wouldn't have normally done, which is we only really see a couple shots of that mom and son fully transformed, so it's not like overused where we're like, yeah, we can tell this looks like shit. And, you know, they were very careful to when they showed you the full form.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I like the full transformation at the end. It's one of my big pros of the movie that I said that it's horrifying. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Rowan, would you be pro running over the alien cat, or should the alien cat just survive? Because when I saw it, I had to make a note that Rowan and the idea of running over this cat.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I think you gotta let the alien. I can't like be flip floppy on this issue. Alien cats have to live.
All right.
They were
taking a firm stance.
Alien dogs. You can shoot them. It's okay. You can
That's
run
terrible.
over them. You can take care of them.
You're gonna get canceled.
Someone's gonna like call, I don't know, I was gonna say animal control. I don't think you report people to animal control because they want to hurt animals. You probably call the police, but feel free to call animal control about that. See what happens. So I have another kind of Nicolas Cage question is, especially with the beginning of this movie. So, like, you know, the whole family's unraveling and, you know, as they're getting infected, they're becoming crazy. But I kind of thought when I was watching this from the beginning, I'm like, are we not sure that Nicolas Cage his character isn't an asshole, like, before the infection? Like, he kind of seems like a D-bag.
Oh, 100%.
I think he is, yeah.
I thought it was, like, kind of interesting because I felt for, like, so much of the movie, like, even though we know he's unraveling, that, like, the movie was still trying to kind of feed us this, like, kind of feeling sorry for him and, like, his situation, and he's, you know, trying to hold the family together. But I just kept thinking, I'm like, this guy's, like, a drunk. He's just a dick in general to everyone in his family. Because he forced them to make this move so he could grab, you know, alpaca titties every day. So
yeah.
So when I saw this, I very much remember the Nic Cage character striking me during the Q&A as almost a Richard Stanley self-insert character that he thought was like really cool and was like a good dude. And I don't know if you've followed up on that director and what he's been up to the last couple of years.
I was waiting for that
he's
to
been
come
brought
up
on, you know, domestic abuse allegations and whatnot.
No way.
So
no.
like literally his next movies got taken away from him for it. So it's the type of thing where I remember him specifically being kind of drunk at the Q&A and very much like, my movie is gonna blow your mind. This is the best movie ever made type of shit. And he was a bit of a prick during that, and just the way he acted and kind of like his mannerisms and what he said, it very much seemed like a self-insert to me. So it's kind of like...
What's a male Mary Sue? By the way.
A male? A Harry Sue? I don't know.
A Harry Sue. A Harry... I got nothing. Yeah, Harry Sue sounds about right.
Yeah, so it was just... I noticed it as well, Rowan, that this guy kind of seemed like an asshole, and when I was kind of thinking back to it, I was like, I kind of remember Richard Stanley being a bit of an asshole too, and a bit of a drunk, and, you know, talking about like his drug use and all this stuff. Like the dude was out of the industry for like 20 years or something, right? Like, clearly there's some shit going on.
Yeah, I was scrolling through his IMDb, and like the only thing I recognized when I was like doing that very quickly while I was watching, I was like, oh, he was involved with that Island of Dr. Moreau that Val Kilmer was in like the 90s.
He was the original director that got fired because the studio said he was like so terrible to work with.
Oh,
that they fired him like only after a couple days on that film.
Oop.
And then that's when he just kind of abandoned, or the industry abandoned him, I guess. I've never seen, I do know his movie, is it like Hardwire? It's like a science fiction Western, I believe. Like I know that's kind of like a cult classic now. I've never seen it, but I have meant to go back and watch it. I think it's like an early 90s film. It's like a science fiction Western horror type thing. But yeah, I was waiting Colton for someone to bring that up. And I was going to say, definitely probably good to recognize that, this guy's pretty much done now. Which is kind of a shame with this, because, I mean, towards the ending of it, you can tell that they definitely planned on kind of expanding this H.P. Lovecraft universe, because we always need what would be like an HPU, or I don't know, whatever they would call it.
PU is right. Ew. No, I'm kidding.
I do know, like, even in the featurette for it, he talks about, because obviously this was before all the charges, and he was like, yeah, like, we already have the next 2 movies planned. Like, there are 2 other H.P. Lovecraft books, and they're all gonna, like, I'm gonna connect them all, and everything's gonna, you know, it's gonna be this connected universe. So there was big plans for this.
So he wanted to, like, do essentially Stuart Gordon in the 80s doing, like, Reanimator and shit.
Yeah.
Except that he's clearly not nearly as talented, but whatever.
And there was a Reanimator shout out in this movie at the beginning when we see what's his name, like the narrator's name. I can't remember, but
Ward,
that's it.
Yeah.
But when we see Ward is wearing like the university t-shirt under his jacket, and that's the university that they went to in the Reanimator.
Yeah. That's a Lovecraft reference. Miskatonic University is always, and then
Yes,
Reanimator was probably paying homage to that, right?
Well, Reanimator is a Lovecraft movie, so
yeah.
Also, shout out to Care La Janice Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies. Just throwing that out there.
So I was going to say, too, as you guys were kind of discussing, you know, the stuff about gentrification, all that kind of stuff. As I looked at that when watching this, I will say, you know, and we were in the text messages kind of, you know, just blatantly joking about it because that's all you can really do. But I was thinking about, because I also have never read the actual story. I looked at like a brief synopsis. It seems like it's like pretty, you know, like the themes are still there. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I wonder how many of these themes are really terrible, because he's probably looking at, you know, Lovecraft was probably talking about like races infiltrating the white man or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Women and exactly.
Yeah, which is funny because they do a total flip on that in the movie, and they modernize it with, you know, they have Ward as a black man, they have Lavinia as a character, because in the story it's just it's Ward's like observation of the Gardner family, but it's mostly like the Nathan character. So they really do modernize it.
Yeah, because I was gonna say in the story too, they have 3 sons. Like it's just the wife, but other than the wife, there isn't any other like females in that family.
Well, it's like before Rowan showed up, and we were just me and Gill and Colton were just like shooting the shit for a bit, and you know we were making some observations about the movie and about Lovecraft, and Jill was like, yeah, there's women in it. So, and I was like, yeah, see, there we go. That's difference number 1 right there.
Well,
and
also
the Barbie swastika.
Yeah, the swastika.
Yeah. Well, that's what started it, but I didn't know if we wanted to get into that. But
sorry.
I mean, there's not much to say other than it's very blatantly a swastika made out of like Barbie legs right at the beginning of the movie. And once again, the director is a bit of an asshole. H.P. Lovecraft is a bit of an asshole. I don't know why it's there, really. If you know, I don't know if it's like, I don't know why you'd put a swastika in it to acknowledge like that the author himself inherently
was anti-Semitic.
I'm not sure what the purpose of it is 100%, right? Yeah, and that's the thing. This guy does strike me as a bit of an edgelord as well, right? So I honestly don't know, but I noticed the swastika right away. I think it's my second note.
Yeah, we all wrote notes about that.
Yeah, so it's something. And yeah, like in terms of H.P. Lovecraft and being a racist and whatnot, I'm not really letting him off the hook in terms of just like, hey, this guy's great, but it's like it winds up being the separating the art from the artist thing, because literally everybody you look in to like pre-1980 is a bigot or a racist or an asshole in so many regards. And honestly, a lot of like H.P. Lovecraft, I've only read some of his stories, you know, At the Mountains of Madness and Innsmouth and whatnot, and it's just like, in my opinion, he's not even that great of a writer. He's very dry. He just has really good ideas, which is why he has a few like really brilliant
stories.
Yeah, like I love Lovecraftian as an influence, or I like cosmic horror. To me, it's like so separated from the man, other than in the name Lovecraft, which
it's
is
like
just a
Kafka.
cool name.
It's like a Kafkaesque thing. It's now a vibe that you can take and rework because I don't know, maybe Kafka is also highly problematic. I'm sure that
probably
he is.
Yes.
But like, you know, it's the contribution is you can take that vibe, that Kafkaesque, you know, surreal vibe, and use it and mold it like silly putty in any like sort of way. And same thing, like I think you can take Lovecraftian and actually make it better. You can take a Lovecraftian idea and make it better than the source material.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. They added like lines from the story as part of Ward's narration, and I really liked it because, like Colton said, H.P. Lovecraft is pretty dry, but he is very descriptive. So I do like some of the things that they added in there with the narration. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you read Tolkien, like he's pretty dry at times when he's just describing the world, or George R. R. Martin, or whoever is trying to like create a fantastical world. Like there's inherently dry aspects, but just like Lovecraft, where he's like so much of like almost like an archaeologist, like he's so focused on like human and like the interactions between humanity. It's just like it winds up being like just describing like just a lot of archaeology and a lot of I don't know. It's just like kind of dull at times. Like when I read At the Mountains of Madness, I'm like, this is largely like 60 pages of just architecture. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, there's a monster. Like
it's like, is this just an anthropology course? Like
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But once again, cool ideas, cool monsters, and a cool mythology based off of ideas that he inspired, right?
What I really want to know is why there hasn't been a podcast. The featurette to this movie is called Hot Pink Horror. I just thought that was a great podcast name. I was like, why doesn't anyone have a podcast called Hot Pink Horror?
We need to change. Bro, get on there as soon as we're done recording and change it to Hot Pink Horror.
For real.
I was going to say the only two other things I really had about this, I did want to give a shout out. I really enjoyed the scenes when we really get into the madness and we kind of have like I take it what they want to represent is like a time shift. Yeah. So we kind of like stretch the images out and it did this like really cool effect. And every time they did that, I fucking loved it. I was like, it looks cool. I was like, man, this movie, obviously, for towards the ending, I should have been on an edible watching this. It would have been awesome. And the only other note I had is a question that I feel like only Gill can answer. I want to know who was more hardcore and goth, the daughter in this or Gill when she was on vampires.com?
Absolutely me. I was straight up edgelord, still am. But yeah, I connect very heavily with Lavinia because when I was in high school, I was like, I'm Wiccan. So
you were a mass market witch, right?
Absolutely,
I'm trademarking that phrase, by the way.
Yeah, and I like that they added that into the movie. Actually, the witchcraft was a cool addition. And
I'm actually sad that they didn't use that more and focus on it more.
And she did protect herself with like a protection ward, and it did save her until she surrendered.
It reminds me of this thing that I read because so me and Jill, we're having this conversation about tarot cards and blah blah blah, and I've been doing a lot of reading the last couple of years. I find myself more kind of leaning back into my old, same thing when you're a goth in junior high or whatever, shit that I was into, which was oh my god, I'm gonna read about the occult and astrology and all that. But I remember reading this paragraph somewhere about, and it was celebrating that, because a lot of people will be it's pseudoscience, it's bullshit, and I'm maybe you're right, but also they were saying essentially that it's an alternative way of understanding the universe that is outside of the kind of white heterosexual capitalist matrix. And I thought that was kind of really cool, and that she, and especially if we're talking about colonization and stuff like that, and the city encroaching on the rural areas, I just thought that was kind of a cool touch, because it really does, she's existing in this kind of feminist space as trying to utilize witchcraft and stuff, and it's outside of the science, and because even the science can't explain this. Ward is there and he's trying to make sense of it, but it doesn't help at all. The police don't help. So I just thought that was kind of a cool aspect, that it's nothing really helps, but the thing that kind of seems to be the most effective is her Wiccan rituals and stuff. And of course that it's a woman being interrupted at the very beginning by a man. I'm just saying, like, that's...
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh, here we go,
Good point.
yep. Some man in the woods just walking on a woman trying to, like, do a beautiful ritual with his white horse next to her.
Oh, yeah, it was nice. I'm also Tommy Chong's character. I think he says, the color is not meant to be understood by human science. And I like to think of the whole movie that way. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to, like, understand it, but, like, there's no point because we can't grasp. And the same thing about the color. It's interesting that they chose a color like a purple fuchsia, because in the book, they don't mention a color. They just say it's like ineffable, it's like undescribable. So yeah, I like the color that they chose because, very Mandy-esque and pretty.
Yeah.
And, so I did like that.
Yeah, my last note was I love the color palette, like, more than anything in this movie.
Yeah, that idea that it can't be quantified or understood by human science is another very cosmic horror thing, right? Like,
yeah.
The idea, like, the horror all stems from our inability to understand.
It's like pure existential terror.
Our human limits, like, can't comprehend what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's very Lovecraft as well, where he will not oftentimes describe things specifically because we can't even verbalize or, explain in any regard, like, what we're seeing. So, like, yeah, I wrote that specific quote down as well. That I really liked it. I was like, yeah, it's a perfect, like, cosmic horror beat for sure.
I just had an idea about what you guys just said. I think we're talking about, like, gentrification, colonization, all that stuff. Neil Gardner being a douchebag. I think at one point one of the characters talks about, like, the Mayans going extinct, and they had alpacas, and then the Gardners have alpacas, but that's not their culture. That's white culture taking it over.
Well, he's just saying, like, these are really cool. These are the wave of the future.
Yeah.
Like, he's not doing it because there's some practical reason to have them. It's like, these are the wave of the future. Like, this is an idea.
Trendy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the Mayans go extinct, and then so do the Gardners. So it's also kind of foreshadowing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Before we get into the review, I need to shout out the wardrobe people because they put what was that kid's name? Jack.
Yeah.
They put him in so much dinosaur garb that I was like, bro, who's your stylist? I want, like, half of these dinosaur sweaters, man. Like, looks sick. And he's
also
walking around with that. Yeah, I know. The set deck is just, like, beautiful in the room, and then he's walking around with that stuffed T-Rex. I was like, damn.
Wow. Colton,
this is the shit right here.
Were you a dinosaur kid?
Oh, I'm a huge dinosaur
kid.
Yeah,
that's
Go to Walmart.
It's so funny. I didn't notice a single
episode.
I did not notice a single dinosaur in this whole movie. Like,
dude,
you're here saying this, and I'm like, I gotta go back and rewatch this because, like, I don't remember there being a dinosaur.
And dinosaurs go extinct from a meteor, and a meteor hit their
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta go to Walmart,
ideas,
man. I was at Walmart. They had some Jurassic Park grown men PJs. Get yourself a pair, Cole.
Shit, man. All right, gonna go get that.
Let's land the plane, get to rating this bad boy. So if you're new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Jill, this was your first pick as a full-time cast member. So you can go first. What would you rate 2019's Color Out of Space?
No surprise, I would give it a slay. I think it's a great adaptation of the source material, and a good update to it. It's still a novel concept. I like the casting is visually appealing, which is something that I like. And it really transcribed that eerie feeling of the color. My only issue with it, I'm not gonna, like, dock it down or anything, but is that it is a long movie. It's like, what, 2 hours long or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it is purposely long to portray that, like, utter domination of the color and the slow burn descent into madness that it inflicts, but I think it could possibly be cut shorter. But I'm still gonna give it a slay. How about you, Mike?
I kind of, like, waffled back and forth about this, and I think I wasn't sure because, like, I have so many thoughts about this movie, and I keep thinking about it and realize I want to watch it again, which definitely gives it a, like, yay. I do think that my biggest quibble with it, well, there were a couple, but one of them is that it was too long. I did find myself, and again, this could be because I watched it while I was hungover on New Year's Day. And so thank you, Ro, for that. You really ruined my viewing of this movie. And as such, I was a little bit impatient for it to end because I was like, I just need to go lie down. But I love cosmic horror. Like, I love stuff that really, like, puts an emphasis on the style. I'm a huge fan of the color palette, like I said, and the acting. And the more we've been talking about it during this episode, the more I'm realizing, like, oh, there's, like, all these layers to it that I kind of only vaguely picked up on while I was watching it, and I actually really do want to watch it again. It was a little bit disappointing to me because I think it's partially because people were comparing it to Mandy. So I had a lot of notions in my head before I started to watch it, and that's really more on me because I know I shouldn't be thinking that when I go into a movie, but I do. So I was a little bit disappointed when I finished it, and I did make a note that this is Screeching Noise the movie. So that is one issue I will say I had. I had it turned up very loud because the dialogue was a bit low on Shudder, but it was a lot of screeching noises, and that was kind of annoying. But there were a lot of ideas that I think that we can pick at and poke at and talk about, so I'm totally going to give it a yay. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, very much like yourself, Mike. I was pretty conflicted on this one. I prefer, like, probably the first 20 or 30 minutes of the movie, even though there is a little lull, weirdly enough, after the asteroid lands or meteorite lands. It's kind of takes its time, kind of infecting everybody. But I did like it when it was smaller scale with less visual effects. Obviously, I like the creature effects later on in the movie, but it just kind of loses me a little bit, I guess. Like, it winds up, I start thinking that it's feeling long in the parts that it should be more exciting. So I don't know, I don't know how that really... where that leaves me. I do like a lot of the ideas that we discussed or like kind of brushed over that I didn't really see the first time, and I still appreciate like a really big swing. What I wrote originally when I saw it, I still think pretty much stands for me. I wrote, undoubtedly creative, color out of space, features some ambitious visuals, neat creature designs, and a good dose of Nic Cage freakouts. If you're looking for a midnight movie, you could do a lot worse. Mm-hmm. Which I still think that stands. I think I felt ever so slightly more positive on it this time, especially with our discussion. So I'm going to give it a very soft yay, I think. Yeah. It's very soft yay from me against a lot of adversity, I think, actually. So
I was going to say I'm actually shocked because judging from your tone in our group chat earlier, when you kind of made a dig at Gill, I was like, Colton's going to hate this movie.
I mean, I just do that anyway. It's just
I know. I was like, honestly, he could. I was thinking he's probably gonna hate it, but he could come in and be like, "This is the best movie I've ever seen."
You got to remember, Mike. I actually didn't even hate White of the Eye, so I mean,
okay, that is a very good point. Yeah. Period.
But it's a very soft yay from me. What about you, Rowan?
Yeah, I think like Colton and Mike, I was kind of same. I was bouncing between an okay and a yay. Like all you guys, I thought it was a little long. I thought this could have been shortened a little bit. I already stated I didn't necessarily like the first half of the movie, how slow it was. I did like once we got into the craziness of it, but then, we kind of touched on already that it's kind of that yin and yang. You kind of have to have that slow build up in order for like the madness to pay off. We can't just always be in the madness, Rowan. Jeez. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know what? I'm kind of exact same, Colton. I think I'm going to go like a soft yay. I really thought I was going to give it an okay, but the more we talked about it and the more I kind of think about it, this is something I'm going to want to watch again. I did like a lot of the effects in it, and that last half I thought really slapped. So yeah, I'm going to give it a yay also.
What I'll also say before you get into if anybody responded to this is that Lovecraft adaptations are very tough to do, and cosmic horror is very tough to do as well. There isn't like a large swath of great movies that are in Lovecraftian horror or cosmic horror.
There's definitely less than 5 good Lovecraft adaptations.
Well, that's the thing. So like this operates in, it kind of gets a little bump that it's like it's even as competent and coherent as it is, even if it is a little incompetent and a little incoherent at times. So yeah, it's definitely one of the better Lovecraft adaptations, in my opinion.
Yeah, so 3 yays and Gill coming in hot on her first full-time cast member. Slay.
I'm glad though, and I'm glad that, like, to me, I think one of the things that's interesting about this movie is that it's part of Gill's lore. Like, she will always she'll look at her tattoo and think about this movie, right? Like, won't you?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah. Like if I look at my tattoo, I remember the music that was playing in the parlor when I was getting it, right? So
Oh,
I feel like
God.
this is now part of your lore
What
of
was
like
it?
your modification of your body. Chandelier by Sia.
Oh my God.
And
okay, that's not what I
Fancy by
expected.
Iggy Azalea featuring Charlie XCX.
Okay. Yeah.
And I hate Sia, but I love that song. And I love Charlie XCX. So yeah.
Interesting.
So we told you what we thought about the movie, and we asked what you thought about it, and we did get 2 responses in on IG. So Nothing to Fear podcast wrote and said, a very trippy experience with a remarkable performance by Nicolas Cage. So I mean, it seemed like we weren't big on the Nicolas Cage, but most everyone that I know that really likes this movie loves Nicolas Cage in this movie.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
we might be the odd ducklings out on this one. And then Freddie Nutty responded and said, one of the craziest visual effects I've seen. Creative beyond belief and fantastic. They just said a fantastic. They didn't say anything else.
Cool.
They might have got cut off by the character limit or something.
Yeah, maybe.
They probably said a fantastic movie or a
yeah,
fantastic
I feel
score
like
or
that
something,
was
you know?
pretty high. So yeah. It seems like everyone really enjoyed this film, but I think we will go to the horrific hotline and see if they enjoyed the film just as much.
For Color Out of Space, I was really excited. It had been on my list for a very long time. I guess as soon as I heard about it the first time when it was announced, and I had never seen it, which sadly, well, makes it a bit sad what I now have to say, because I didn't really enjoy the movie very much. To be fair, it's always hard to kind of put Lovecraftian themes, or especially the images and imagery, to screen. Off the top of my head, I only can think of Carpenter's Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness, and the rather recent The Void as quite good examples of that. But Color Out of Space was just all over the place, and it tried to tackle too many of those typically Lovecraftian ideas for its runtime and its story. So it's not only about the endless space and the kind of crazy thing about there, or the madness of knowledge, or the madness of seeing something incredible or crazy, but it's also about the distortion of humanity and humans, and it's about witchcraft, and it's about an apocalyptic event taking place, or maybe not. Just too much overall for me, which also brings me to another problem I have with the movie, the scope of the movie. So it starts out on this small farm, which I really liked, and I think is the best part of the movie, the first 30 minutes or so, when it's close and contained and starts to get weird and things start to change. But then towards the final act, it just becomes bigger and bigger, and I never really got an overview of what the actual scope is, so I never knew how big this entire space color radius became, and then it just ends without much of a satisfying resolution, and well, in the end, apparently no one in the movie really noticed anything or remembers anything. And I guess all that's due to the pacing, and as I said, I like the first part of the movie, but it just escalates way too quickly, and the focus maybe should have stayed on the family and not bring in this Watcher guy who appears a few times as the hero, or not a hero, but the final boy in this case in the end. So the last 15 to 20 minutes were a weird letdown that didn't make any sense for me personally. But there are a few things I actually liked about the movie, and I want to talk about those as well, because it's always nicer this way. One thing I started to like, didn't like in the beginning as one of the few things, but really like towards the end is Nicolas Cage's unhinged performance, because it was annoying to start with, but once the horror really kicked in, you never knew, is Nicolas Cage just an unhinged actor, or is his character now starting to get crazy? And it was a nice back and forth for the movie, as well as on kind of a meta level. And there's also some beautiful scenery when the color starts to take over the garden, and some practical effects looked really gross. There weren't sadly too many of those practical effects, or often with kind of a filter over them or some added CGI effects. But what you could see of the creature effects, looked really good. So overall, I can't give this movie a yay, but due to the overall the overall finesse that goes into such a movie, because it is a good-looking movie and everything on the technical aspect is good, I'll still give it an okay, because it's not a yay for me, or an A for me. It's right down the middle. I just think that other movies have done a better job, and while watching the movie, I felt reminded of both Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman, and John Carpenter's The Thing with Kurt Russell, and both are way better movies. And if I watch a movie and I am constantly reminded of one, or in this case, two movies I really enjoy and I think deal with similar themes in a way better way, it just isn't good for the movie I'm currently watching. So, okay for me, for this movie. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Nicholas, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard if it reminds you of movies you absolutely love, and then you're like, well, this doesn't live up to any of those ones.
Well, I think we all saw The Thing and
Yeah.
Annihilation in there an awful lot.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would agree that, well, at least The Thing is a better movie. I don't know. I think I might be the only person in the world that is not a
No.
huge Annihilation fan. So, yeah, and if you want to be like Nicholas and leave us a voicemail, you can do so on the horrific hotline at 1-902-418-8620. And if you don't want to call in, you can always just send us an MP3 to itslayspodcast@gmail.com, or message us on Instagram or any of our social medias. You know, we'll get the MP3 file somehow. And yeah, if you're not following us already, be sure to do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Slasher, Letterboxd. If it's a social media, we're probably on there at It Slays Podcast. And Rowan, you want to go ahead and plug the playlist?
Yeah, so if you're into horror music, you can go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any trouble finding it there, it's also in our Linktree links on all of our social media. But we put up music from horror movies we review, or iconic horror movies, or just horror movies we love. And there's anything from scores to just songs that remind you of that movie. So, you know, go follow it. We're always uploading new music. I'll probably put something from this on there. I thought the score was pretty strong on this film. So yeah, go in, get your spooky music on, and jam out. So I think really all that is left is for us to announce our next film. It is Colton's pick, and we're waiting in anticipation.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I've never done this before, but I didn't really know what to pick. I have a private list on Letterboxd of 37 movies currently that I would like to pick sometime. But as I scrolled through them, nothing kind of called out to me. So I'm just going to leave it up to, you know, the numbers. I'm going to pick a random number between 1 and 37 off of Google, and let's see what we get.
That's exciting.
We got number 14, which is Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978.
78, yes!
Which is kind of an interesting double feature to this one, actually. So,
yes.
I guess the next pick is going to be Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's the one with Donald Sutherland. So,
nice.
Yeah, we'll be checking it out.
Oh my god, y'all are going to be like so annoyed with me when I talk about this.
So yeah, get Invasion of the Body Snatchers into your eye holes, and we will we'll be back in 2 weeks. I mean, I think we'll be back before that. I think there's a Now Slain in the works for this week. But yeah, so as always, thank you for all the support. Hopefully you enjoyed your holidays, and it's time to rein in the new year with lots of good horror movie picks. So, as always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike. Also, welcome, Jill.
Aw.
I'm Colton.
And I'm Jill. Bye.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
But the prime time gets.
On with the new Fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.